It's easy to look back at Tim Steiden's time at West Ham United for the failures in the transfer market, with the most prominent being, of course, Nicholas Fulkrug, which, by the player's agent's own admission, the transfer to West Ham hasn't quite worked out. Now, that's a massive understatement if ever I've heard one. But in addition to Fulkrug, we have to then question, and we did then question, Steiden's judgments as to whether the extensive time the Pearl Finders spent in Brazil was worth the effort after coming back with virtual unknown Luis Guilherme for around about £23 million. Now, we thought that maybe with Guilherme having been identified as one of the brightest young talents in world football, that he might become a revelation at West Ham. But in all honesty, 22 months on from his transfer from Palmeiras, the young Brazilian is still struggling to break regularly into the first 11 and has played just 13 minutes of Premier League football under Nuno. But then we reflect on some of the players he got over the line, Steidten, and have to legitimately ask, was it all as bad as we thought? After all, despite not being credited for discovering them, Steidten did play a big role in persuading the likes of Mohamed Kudus and Edson Alvarez to buy into the West Ham vision. Okay, Kudus is now gone, and we made a bit of money on him, and rightly or wrongly, Edson Alvarez was cast out by previous manager Graham Potter. Look, if you're new to the West Ham boys, or if you've watched the channel before but yet to become a subscriber, the QR code that's just appeared will take you to the subscription page. You've got to click on that and become a subscriber of the channel free of charge. And if you like what you've watched and what you've heard, there's a like button underneath the video. Please click on that. It helps the West Ham boys to through the algorithms on YouTube. It helps elevate the channel. And also, you could help to promote the video by clicking the hype button, which allows other viewers to watch the video as well. And after all that, if you're feeling rather generous, you can become a member of the West Ham Boys, again through that QR code. Hit the membership, hit the join button to become a member. For $1.99 a month, you do get extra content, and all the money raised through the membership scheme goes to Prostate Cancer UK. Right, let's get back onto the subject matter at hand. Why am I banging on about Tim Steidten, given that he left the club back in February of this year? Yeah, this year. We're still in the same year where an awful lot has happened. Well, with all the high-profile transfers that Steidten was involved in, one of the things that we wanted from him was for him to prove that he was indeed a Pearl finder. But who would have thought that the Pearl would be a player who is now making an awful lot of noise in the under-21s, but one whom many fans had almost forgotten about? A young player that a lot of fans thought would probably come to nothing. After all, if we paid £23 million for Luis Guilherme and not much has come of that, then surely paying £500,000 to Paris FC for Mohamadou Kante was not necessarily going to reap any reward, was it? Well, maybe we might all be proved wrong. As part of the 5-year deal that Steidten agreed for Kante in 2024, West Ham paid Paris FC, as I've said, circa £500,000 plus a potential £400,000 in add-ons dependent on how Kante develops. Now, we knew part of that deal was that Kante was immediately loaned back to Paris FC to help them through their campaign to win promotion back into the French League One. However, with circumstances changing at the French club last season, the new majority owners, the Arnault family, who also own luxury brand Louis Vuitton, didn't believe it right to continue developing a player who was not going to be theirs at the end of the season. And as a consequence, Kante got very little game time in a team that indeed did finally get promotion back to League One. So Kante arrived in the summer at West Ham with just 6 appearances and 59 minutes of senior team football to his name. He was promptly put into the under-21 development squad, and not many people really thought that much would come of him this season. Another failed Steidten signing? Kante was on pre-season training with the senior squad whilst Graham Potter was in charge. He went to America with the squad. But when the Premier League season started, he and a number of other under 21 players returned to the development squad to prepare for their season ahead. And Kante has certainly hit the ground running. He has been one of the mainstays of the under 21 side this season and has scored a number of goals with several assists in all competitions. The most recent goal was a thunderous shot from outside the 18-yard box in the 3-0 win over Liverpool. Kante recently turned 20 back in September, and there are suggestions that he's already outgrown the under 21 development squad. And just like Potter, Nuno has invited Kante and a host of other development players to train with the senior squad. And there is a feeling that Kante could make his senior debut before this season is out. Now, in the meantime, there are apparently a number of championship teams casting an eye over the player, with some planning to make bids for him, either on loan or offers to buy the player when the January transfer window opens. But I don't think there's any way West Ham are going to cash in on Kante just yet. It was only recently that his initial 5-year deal was extended by a further 2 years to have him at the club till 2031. His progress has been rapid, so rapid that rather than sending him out on loan, Nuno might actually consider using him in the senior team, especially during when the AFCON starts on 21st of December of this year, when we're likely to lose a number of key players to that tournament. Now, on international level, Kante has never played at any level for either the French team or the Senegalese team. He can represent both. But given that he's not yet had a call-up at youth level or international level, could it be that Senegal itself might decide to call him up for the AFCON? Look, I'm not sure that that's likely, but if it doesn't happen, it means that Nuno will have him available to play for the senior team during the AFCON. So what does Kante bring to the senior team? What would he bring that's anything different to what we already have? Well, Kante is noted for his excellent ball carrying from midfield into advanced positions, and he's pretty direct in his play. Across Premier League 2 and the various cup competitions that the under-21s have been involved in, he's scored 4 goals with 3 assists so far, indicating a capacity to both create and finish chances in the final third. Now, for anyone who's been watching the under-21s this season, everyone can see his power and his direct style of play. He can play centrally or in a more advanced number 10 role, demonstrating that he's adaptable to different tactical demands. But he's certainly not necessarily the finished article. His impact has only been at under 21 level. Can he adapt this to senior level? Well, some believe that he can. But to thrive in top level central midfield roles, he needs to refine his defensive positioning as much as he's doing with his attacking style. This area could be improved should West Ham decide to loan him out to one of the many championship clubs that have expressed an interest. But if Nuno decides to keep him and introduce him to playing in the senior team, would he fit into Nuno's system? I think the closest player that we currently have to Kante in the senior squad is Thomas Souček. Both are able to drive the ball forward from midfield and make late runs into the box. A successor to Souček, perhaps? But Kante, even at his young age, could become even better than Souček over time. He has a powerful shot on him, combative in midfield, athletic, very decent ball control, strong in breaking up opposition play and winning the ball back. His direct dribbling skills, shooting threat, and late box arrival could provide a different dimension to West Ham in midfield this season. So West Ham and Nuno have a bit of a dilemma, or more of a conundrum on their hands. Kante is already being talked about as a rare find indeed. Another Patrick Vieira, a player who can develop into a complete all-round midfielder and who can become a very viable asset for West Ham over time. So, does Nuno keep him and have him continue training with the first team, where he might earn a spot on the bench, which could lead to a few cameo minutes on the pitch? That could build his confidence and it could help him to acclimatise to the Premier League tempo. That would seem the most obvious thing to do, especially as I've mentioned, when a few players are going to be missing because of AFCON. And that would leave enough time to decide from the 21st of December. It would leave enough time for Nuno to decide whether to send the player out on loan to the Championship or to keep him at West Ham in the senior squad. That way, it will give Nuno a chance to find out whether he can actually deliver in a more competitive environment, whether that be the Championship, like Freddie Potts did for Portsmouth last season, or whether that be being around the senior team. But if Kante is given senior team opportunities and does well, then perhaps a loan spell may not be necessary. So there's a lot to ponder, and Kante isn't the only academy player who may get his senior team opportunity this season. But right now, for the way the player is playing his football, he's certainly a hot topic at West Ham. And whatever happens with Kante, maybe after all the criticism that Tim Steidten got, and I was one of those individuals who gave him a lot of stick, maybe he got one thing right at West Ham. And even I would admit that if Kante does become a great footballer, then maybe Tim Steidten did get something right and found his pearl after all.